Hi, this is Christy with Guidepost to Wellness. Time for Chapter 5. Chapter 5 is a big chapter. I'm going to try to keep this video as short as I can. There are some good appendices that are later on in the book, so we'll be able to hit some of these topics again. But the topic is about mindless eating scripts, and that is a really big area if you think about it, because basically these are the automatic patterns and habits that we have that we aren't even aware of. And so the appendix talks a little bit more about some specific scenarios. For example, when you're eating out and how to handle parties or different things like that. So when we're talking about those automatic patterns and habits, it can be anything from reading the newspaper while you eat your breakfast. And so as you're doing that, you're more focused on reading the newspaper, so you're eating mindlessly. And so that script will have you basically continue eating until you're done with the newspaper. That's one type of example. The author used a really good example about how he would come home and he would come through the garage, which brought him into the kitchen. So then he'd sit his stuff down and immediately go to the refrigerator, into the pantry, and grab a snack because he was just on his way in the door. This is the way he dropped off his stuff, grab a snack, go upstairs, change or whatever. So that was a mindless script for him, and he realized that he was eating more by doing that just because it was automatic. And the thing that was really interesting about this chapter too is it talked about statistically most people, and again, not everybody's like this, but most people will eat more food than what they truly need to nourish their body when they're eating with other people. And there are situations where that could be helpful, but for most of us, it's not going to be. And when you understand that, for example, if you eat with one other person, then you've got a chance of eating 35% more food than you would eat by yourself. If you eat with 4 or more people, then you have a chance of eating 75% more food. And then the larger the group, if it's like more than 7, so you're talking Thanksgiving, holidays, big parties, where you're having a sit-down type of meal, then you're inclined to eat 96% more food. So these are all things to be aware of. And he goes into detail and talks about how it could be that you slow yourself down. It could be the simple cues such as, well, everybody else is having an appetizer and or an extra drink and or dessert, so I will too. So those are the ways that we really end up eating more when we're eating with other people. Another area that I think most of us would think is pretty common or pretty much makes sense is that we eat mindlessly when we're watching television, and studies are showing now that people that watch more television have a tendency to have higher weights. And they did a test where they had people, they told them that they were reviewing a pilot series. So there was a 30-minute show and a 1-hour show, and then they love to get popcorn because we like to eat popcorn while we're watching television and movies. And they found out that the people that watched the 1-hour pilot show ate 20% more popcorn than the 30-minute show. Now the thing is it worked also with healthier foods like carrots. People would eat more carrots during the hour-long show. But the fact of the matter is the more you're in that mindless type of programming, the more you're going to eat. Another thing that was really interesting is just talking about the restaurant industry, and I just flabbergasting when you think about how the lighting, the mood, the music, all of those types of things can impact how long we stay, and how long we stay can impact how much we eat. But on the flip side of that, fast food type of places, you can have a tendency to overeat there as well because you're eating much more quickly. So you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't in both those situations, because if you stay longer, you're inclined to eat more bread like at a slow Italian restaurant, or more wine or more dessert. And then they use an example of a fast Chinese restaurant where you're just inclined with the bright lights, fast pace, the simple basic tables and everything. You're more inclined to eat your food very quickly. And then when that happens, that's when we're not waiting for our stomach to actually feel full and we overeat. A few other things that were really interesting too are things such as how smell can affect us, and he talks about the Cinnabon Effect, where Cinnabons in the malls, and I know my brother is a big one, loves cinnamon rolls. As a matter of fact, there have been times when he's been over to visit that I would like make cinnamon rolls in the morning, hoping that the smell would get him out of bed earlier than usual. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but Cinnabon would not put their stores around a food court so that there would not be any competing smells. That's why they were always located separately, so that the smells would just really grab your attention. And the military even does testing with smells, because it's really important to make sure your soldiers are eating enough. And there are times when they're just going to be in situations that are going to affect their appetite, whether it's heat, cold, smells. If you've ever been in the military and you've ever been in any type of environment like that, the smell of diesel fuel and expended fuel, the burning smell and things of that nature are just, even your own body odor, are not going to be very appealing. So they did a lot of testing that was classified, but the authors group did help with some basic lab testing, where they took something as plain and boring as oatmeal and they put them in bowls that smelled differently. How crazy is that? So they found that if they put the oatmeal in a bowl that smelled like cinnamon and raisins, that people would eat more than the plain bowls. So that kind of makes sense. It smells really good, so you're going to eat more. But on the flip side, if you're eating something and it doesn't smell the way you expect, you're going to eat less. So the example there they used is they put oatmeal in bowls that smelled like macaroni and cheese. And I don't know about you, but I know that when I have my mouth set for a certain taste, which is going to come from what you're smelling, and it just doesn't taste that way, it's just a disconnect, and I'm just not going to want to eat it. So it was very interesting how scientific they were getting with those studies. Another thing even is things like the weather. Back in the 80s, they actually used to do storm radio spots, Campbell Soup would, because they found that if the weather's cold and dreary, then, and they put a little bug in your ear on the radio about, oh, soup is, you know, so savory and warm and makes you feel good inside, that people were inclined to get more soup. And I can see how that happens. I know myself, I don't like soup when it's hot outside. I don't like soup in the summer. I definitely prefer soups and stews and things when the weather's cooler. And a lot of times I just don't even want to eat hot meals as much in the summertime. I want salads or maybe something grilled, but a lot more cooler things of that nature. So even Campbell's Soup was leveraging that human nature in us. So as always, we've got some takeaways from here about creating some distraction-free eating scripts. And this is where, again, there's a whole appendix that I'm going to hit towards the end of the book, talking about identifying and how to re-script some of the eating danger zones. Things like snacks, parties, restaurants. I'm a bad one for eating at my desk, or, you know, if I'm on a trip, eating in the car, things like that. So two of the quick pointers that we'll get into for this chapter are to, if you know that snacking is a big thing where you do a lot of it perhaps when you're watching TV or playing a computer game or something of that nature, then try to distract yourself before you're snacking by actually appointing a place to eat the snacks. So if you're going to eat a snack, then eat it in the kitchen, eat it at the dining room table, make it less convenient and more mindful, and then you're apt to eat less and snack less. And then one of the things that he's talked about several times is about, don't just eat out of the bag, out of the box. Serve yourself a portion of it. Take that wherever you're going to eat it and eat just that, and then stop at that point. That will, and obviously if you use a smaller bowl or smaller container than a larger one, then that's going to also help you eat a little bit less. So more to come. As I mentioned, there's a lot more that he's going to discuss on the eating scripts, but just think about some of your areas where you find that you just have a tendency to eat without thinking. I know that mine is eating at my desk at work. That's a really big one. I would be better served to take more breaks. I try to come out, and I ate my lunch out here under the tree today. So that's a big one for me. I know that I do eat when I travel in the car, but what I found that I attempt to do there is to pack sensible things so that even if I am going to eat while I'm driving, I eat a little bit less. But I think it's really important too. I find that if I keep things put away, I don't keep snacks sitting on the counter, then kind of that out of sight, out of mind. Candies and different things like that, definitely not keeping them around. I think that those are a few of my eating scripts. So I look forward to getting to the appendix a little bit and discovering a little bit more about some ways to rework that. So more to come, more exciting chapters. Again, I'm still really enjoying this book. Chapter 6 is coming up. And if you're interested in the content that I'm putting out, I'm including some links now to a one-time sponsorship. You can send me a PayPal. If you're interested in subscribing and becoming a Patreon, I've listed my Patreon account. I am going to be putting out some products as well, and I'll have those links below. And if you're interested in a free initial consultation, I have a link to set that up and contact me for that. If you're in the Charlotte area, we can meet face-to-face. Otherwise, we can do a Skype or we can do it over the phone. So please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to hear your comments. If you find that you've got any specific eating scripts, habits that you kind of thought about after listening to this video, please let me know. I'm also going to put a link for the book, again, on Amazon. Remember, I had the book for 3 years before I actually started reading it. So again, more to come. Hope you enjoy the content. If you're interested in hearing about the next video, make sure that you hit subscribe. I'll talk to you later. Be well.